We join Sue King and Bruce Hockin for the HTV News after the break.
A new series of Dust Off, tonight 7:30 on HTV.
In the TV exclusive, Ian Botham and wife Kathy on how their marriage survived against the odds, and Hollywood's Martin Sheen live tomorrow.
The new style West this week, every Thursday night live at 11:40. It's your chance to call us and question our studio guests yourself on the big issues.
When you've seen some of the things the police have seen through their video cameras, you could be forgiven for never wanting to venture onto the highway again. From helicopters, from fixed positions, and from onboard cameras in patrol vehicles, Alistair Stewart introduces footage that ranges from stupid antics to criminal acts. Witness them all in Police Stop, Wednesday at 8:30 on HTV.
News for the West from the studios of HTV.
Good evening. He's been found alive. Those were the words that ended a 7-hour nightmare for one Somerset family just over an hour ago.
Oliver James' mother had left the 2-year-old for just a few moments outside the family home at West Hatch. She came out of the house to find him gone. Well, Oliver was eventually found after a massive police search and handed back to his mother. He appeared unharmed.
Well, we're going live now to West Hatch, where our reporter is Bill Spencer. Bill, what's the atmosphere? What's the feeling like there this evening?
Bruce, as you can imagine, the atmosphere here is one of total euphoria. It's a wonderful end to a nightmare of a day for Oliver's parents. Can you imagine how it would feel if your 2-year-old son had gone missing for 7 hours and you had no idea where he was? So here, with the story of the search for Oliver, is John Alcock.
It was, quite simply, every mum and dad's worst nightmare. One moment little Oliver James was there, the next he'd gone. A huge police search operation was launched, but there was no sign of the toddler. Oliver vanished from outside his home in West Hatch. His mother, Karen, couldn't believe he'd gone.
I turned round for a telephone number, and the time it took for a telephone number to be written down, he'd gone. Just went out and he wasn't around anymore. Just disappeared.
As the hours ticked by, the whole community joined the increasingly desperate search.
We've never had that sort of thing happen in the village before, and we'll do all we can to find this little child.
They're all out searching, but just hope we find him.
Brings it home how close to home it can happen. It is a big shock.
Even low-level helicopter searches brought no sign of Oliver. Some neighbours reported seeing strangers in the area. Others said the 2-year-old had run away before. For 7 hours, his parents didn't know if their Oliver was alive or dead. He'll probably never understand the strain they endured.
At 5 o'clock this afternoon, 7 hours after he'd disappeared, Oliver James was back in his mother's arms. It was a scene of unreserved joy, laughter and tears from mum and dad, but for young Oliver, wide-eyed bewilderment. The happy family were ushered back into the house, but after a quick check-over, mum came out to tell her happy story.
Completely safe, thank goodness. I'd just like to thank everybody who's turned out to help us look for him, and all the help and support we've had from the community and everybody. Just can't thank them enough.
Where was he found?
Apparently in the ditch, the next farm up.
So he'd wandered how far?
I don't know, it must have been about a mile, I suppose. I'm not completely sure on the facts of where he was found.
Now, when we spoke to you this morning, you were frantic. Your feelings now?
Relieved, happy, and just glad to have him back.
So the longest 7 hours for you?
Oh, nightmare. Absolute nightmare. I think it must be every mother's dream. and it happened so quickly. He doesn't normally wander very far away from me.
And you don't know where? I mean, was it here that it was
Yes,
outside?
just at the back door. Just disappeared. Split second, literally. Oh, just absolutely relieved.
Was there ever a moment when you thought that you might not see him again?
There was, yes. After about 4 hours when there was just no sightings, just absolutely nothing, I convinced myself that someone had taken him off in the car because there was just no sign.
Then it was off to hospital for Oliver and a thorough medical. He was muddy, he was tired, he was cold, but at least he was now safe and back with his mum and dad. A happy ending to the James's family's longest day. Mark Astaire, HTV News at West Hatch.
Well, the one man who can be really proud of what he's accomplished today is the farmer who found little Oliver, and that's Medford Briggs. Mr. Briggs, tell me what happened.
Well, basically, I've been away most of the day working, sort of moving cattle. And I came back about 2 o'clock, saw helicopters and a fair few police about, and asked someone what was happening. They said the little girl, I was told, had gone missing from Yard Farm. I didn't actually know there was any children here, to be honest. And I had to go away and do some more work, move a bull and different things. Came back about 20 to 5 time, came back here to see if anything had happened, and I spoke to a policeman on a horse, and he said that they were still looking. So I said I'd go on home and then come back again and give them a hand.
Just to describe, if you can, what it looked like, what you saw when you found him.
Well, I walked down through my yard. I remember there was a big ditch down the bottom because the policeman had mentioned he'd asked whether there was any ditches with water in, and I suddenly thought, well, there could be a bit of water in it because it has rained the last week. And I thought I had a look, so I actually walked down the edge of the ditch and sort of heard a noise. Thought it was a bird, but sort of looked, and there was a little boy in the ditch talking to himself.
And was he all right?
Fine.
He was fine?
Yeah.
OK.
Yeah, he was stood up talking to himself.
Great. Wonderful stuff. Thank you very much indeed, and now back to Bruce in the studio.
So there you are, such relief. What a happy ending. No wonder they're pleased and relieved at West Hatch tonight. After that, let's give you a look at the rest of the day's news.
They came here in utter desperation as their own country was torn apart. But 4 years later, a young family from Romania who've made their home here in the West Country have been told that they're not welcome here. The authorities have given Mihai Racosi, his wife and three children, just 28 days to leave.
It may look like a normal, happy family scene in the village of Winford. But this couple from Romania say they're in fear of their lives, having had their application for asylum rejected. They now say they're prepared to have their children put up for adoption if they're forced to go back. Mihai, a tennis coach, and Gabrielle fled from the turmoil of Romania 4 years ago and were granted temporary asylum here. They settled in Winford, where their 3 children go to school. But their dreams of a secure future have been shattered by a letter from the Home Office telling them that the situation in Romania has improved and they now have to go back. But the couple say they fear the worst if they have to return to a country where many repressive practices are still prevalent.
We can be jailed from 1 to 5 years because we spoke against the government. We can probably be beaten up. And we really do not know what will going to happen to the children. We are afraid that probably they will end up in one of those horrible orphanages.
But Gabrielle says she'd rather give her children away than condemn them to such a miserable fate.
If we have to go back, I think I'm going to put the children up for adoption because it's not fair for them to suffer. I'm sure that someone out there, some kind people, would be willing to take in 3 children. And that would be the end of it. But of course, no mother wants to happen this to her children, but if I have no other choice, I'm sorry, this is what I'm going to do.
The couple say before they fled Romania, government agents filmed them taking part in demonstrations, and they fear reprisals if they return. The Home Office says it believes their fears are largely unfounded, and that the new regime is a considerable improvement on the one they experienced under President Ceausescu. The Racosis say the changes have been largely cosmetic. So today they signed an application to appeal against the Home Office decision. and residents of Winford started a petition supporting the family in their quest to stay together and to stay here. Graham Purchase, HTV News, Winford near Bristol.
Some news in brief now. An independent inquiry into the death of a Bristol student during a walking trip in North Wales says inexperience and inadequate equipment contributed to the tragedy. 29-year-old Colette Fleetwood, a language student at the University of the West of England, fell to her death in Snowdonia in January. She was on a trip organised by the university's Fell Walking Club. The report recommends better training and preparation for student club activities, but Colette's family says the report doesn't go far enough. A man has appeared in court today accused of stabbing to death his wife in a car park in Nailsea. 44-year-old Pamela Cool was attacked as she arrived for work at Owlett's hardware wholesalers on an industrial estate in the town. 48-year-old Michael Cool has been remanded in custody by magistrates at Weston-super-Mare.
So far, rail travellers have endured 13 weeks of strikes. But today in the West Country, the management of Railtrack announced that they'd broken the strike. On Thursday, for the first time on a stoppage day, they're planning, they say, to run a full timetable between Bristol and London.
Thursday sees another strike in the 13-week-old signal workers dispute. But intercity services between the West Country and London will not be affected. Railtrack announced today it had enough staff to operate mainline signal boxes on that day, partly because growing numbers of RMT workers are defying the strike.
Over the last few weeks, we've seen a significant number of signalmen return to work, especially in the Reading area, where we've got over 84% of those signalmen now back at work. As a result of that, we've also been able to train some more of our managers and have also been able to redeploy them better into the Bristol and other areas to be able to operate a fuller service.
Today's announcement is good news for InterCity, which has been losing £250,000 on strike days in the Western region alone. Even when trains have been running, customers have been unsure about whether they could rely on them.
We've been losing customers during the strike days. The reason we've been losing customers is simply that they're afraid of taking the risk that they may not be able to get the trains they want on strike days. What we're saying is now, there's no risk. This is a normal service.
Railtrack are extracting the maximum propaganda from this announcement, saying it means in effect that the signalman's strike can no longer be regarded as a national one. But the RMT denies the action is crumbling to any significant degree, and they point out that the service on regional railways will still be a patchy one. The RMT, which insists the strike is still solid in Bristol and many other areas, has accused Railtrack of putting safety at risk by using unskilled staff, a charge emphatically denied. Thursday's normal service only applies on routes to and from London. Other intercity services and regional railways will be operating between a third and two-thirds of their normal timetables. Bob Constantine, HTV News, Bristol.
A man is still being questioned tonight in connection with a brutal attack on 85-year-old Gladys Parker at her home in Chard. Mrs. Parker, who's recovering in hospital, suffered multiple injuries to her body and hands. The local community is still trying to come to terms with such an appalling assault on a frail elderly widow.
85-year-old Gladys Parker was so badly beaten, her son had difficulty recognising her. Tonight, she's described as being in a satisfactory condition at Musgrove Park Hospital in Taunton, but still in shock and unable to see properly. Her family say she's a gentle, friendly lady who wouldn't harm a fly. Police believe she may have been attacked after disturbing a burglar at her home. They're continuing to question a 29-year-old man from Crewe Kern, but are still appealing for more information about the assault.
Well, if you're one of those people concerned about crime and policing here in the West Country, you can put your questions directly to the Chief Constable of Avon and Somerset, Mr David Shattuck, on our new look, The West This Week. That's on Thursday night. That's your chance to call the Chief. You can ring us now and leave your number on 557788. That's 0272 Bristol, of course. 557788. And then we'll call you back. So.
Next, a campaign has been launched in the West Country today to help raise awareness about the potential dangers of tampons. It follows the death of a Bristol woman from toxic shock syndrome. The group, which includes women who have suffered from TSS, aims to prevent further deaths.
It's hard to see why Angela Morris's car needs a disabled badge. You have to look closely to spot her disability.
But this young mother suffered toxic shock syndrome 2 years ago. When she came out of a 3-week coma in Frenchay Hospital, the doctors had amputated her left leg below the knee. The condition also cost her 4 toes and part of her heel on the right foot. She's bitter that the symptoms were only spotted by the 3rd doctor who called to see her.
Possibly doctors they've heard of it, but they don't know quite how serious it can be, and nurses definitely don't know.
Today, Angela joined a group of women in Bristol to launch a regional branch of National Tampon Alert. They believe the hygiene product puts women's lives at risk. It was highlighted earlier this year by the death of Bristol mother Shane Edwards. She died in hospital 3 days after showing the first symptoms. Her family, who've campaigned for greater awareness of the potential danger from tampons, are angry that doctors' surgeries are refusing their posters.
Only last week I approached my own doctor's surgery to put up Shane's leaflets and her posters, and I was told no. Various reasons given, obviously, but basically we had the same response from Shane's own practice.
DEBRA Watson fell ill with TSS when she was a student in America. She was given immediate treatment and made a full recovery. Her experience here, though, is that GPs know little about the condition.
I'm coming back to Britain. I went to my local GP because I was told to have a checkup. And I said to him, I've had toxic shock, and he treated me like I was a Martian that had just landed. Oh, really, have you? And I said, and I just wondered what tests I should have to make sure I was all back to normal. And he said, well, you look all right to me, love. And I was like, well, that was ridiculous. I couldn't believe how he was saying that to me.
This afternoon, the Royal College of General Practitioners declined to make any comment. The tampon industry, worth £8 billion in this country, stressed that warnings are put on packets and there are leaflets inside. But after the death of Shane Edwards, the campaigners in the West say this is not enough and they want changes in the law. Bob Crampton, HTV News, Bristol.
Well, next tonight, a new campaign against the dangers of drugs. To highlight European Drugs Prevention Week, all sorts of stars got together in Wiltshire to make beautiful music. The Drugs Awareness Campaign took over Peter Gabriel's recording studios at Box to record a single entitled No Drugs, and that's going to be released next month. Well, the idea is to use very well-known faces to help spread the message. But at the same time, would you believe, as that campaign against drugs, a new campaign has just, a new company has just started trading in Bristol and highlighted the absurdity of our drugs laws. Would you believe they sell cannabis seed and it's all legal?
It's not illegal to sell cannabis seeds, just to grow them. But there's controversy over the opening of a business in Bristol which not only sells the seeds, but also the equipment needed to grow them. The owner of Sunlight Systems points out that the seeds can be used as fish bait, and that the lights, for example, can be used for growing many types of plant.
I'm merely a businessman. I have no morals against cannabis growing. I would not help somebody to grow it purely because it's illegal. I'd love to help people grow cannabis, but the law states that I can't. If the Home Office is going to keep saying to me, people buying seeds in a shop that, yes, sells and promotes paraphernalia for cannabis growing, and they're still saying these seeds are not going to be used when they've been brought to Britain, then who am I to argue?
This packet contains seeds which are labelled as Super Skunk, a comparatively recent and very powerful variety developed in Holland. The 10 seeds cost £40, but just one of them is capable of growing a plant worth 10 times that much. The police say they disapprove of selling seeds because it could encourage the use of drugs. But there's little they can do, and the Home Office says it has no plans to change the law. Bill Spencer, HTV News, Bristol.
Well, stay with us. There's still plenty more to come on the programme, and it's a food for thought. Too much of the wrong food, learning a lesson on healthy eating. And not enough of the right food, but help from the southwest is on its way to refugees in Rwanda.
But right now, it's time for our weekly health checkup with Dr. Gillian Rice. Well, they say you are what you eat. Well, if that's true, then we have a lot to worry about over our children's eating habits. Any parent knows they often shun healthy food in favour of crisps, hamburgers and greasy chips. Well, now a new survey out today reveals that youngsters' diets here in the southwest are amongst the worst in the whole country. So, Gillian, what's going wrong then?
Well, the survey was carried out for a heart disease prevention project and revealed almost a third of the 7 to 11-year-olds didn't have enough calcium, which is essential for healthy bones and teeth. Half exceeded recommended levels of saturated fats, and hardly any children received enough vitamin E, which can help prevent heart disease. While dietitians are concerned, they believe that just a few changes could make a big difference to children's health.
The first week of a new term, and by midday, pupils at Stoke Lodge Junior School in Bristol are ravenous. Burgers and chips is one of their favourite meals too. Lots of healthy potatoes and peas are available, but they almost all choose chips. Yogurts and fruit are on the menu, but donuts prove most popular. An age-old message of eating up your greens isn't popular. 98% of South West children studied didn't get enough vitamin E.
What do you think of cabbage to eat?
Not very nice, no.
It's very good for you.
I know. No, it don't taste very nice.
These children get plenty of nutrition in balanced school meals and packed lunches, but studies on South West youngsters revealed their diets contained a lot of sugar and fatty foods and not enough of the vitamins for healthy development. Dietitians fear problems for children in later life as good eating habits are established early on.
With vitamin E, there is no major clinical signs of deficiency. You're not going to see anything like poor skin or whatever, but what you will find is that with the low vitamin E content in the diet, that they will be more susceptible to developing illnesses such as cancers, coronary heart disease later on in life. Come on!
There are also worries children lead more sedentary lives. Computer games and television keep millions glued to screens, games and sport often taking second place. But youngsters are at least aware of the healthy eating message.
The healthiest food is a dinner with salad or something.
However, the temptations and pressures to eat too much are great, according to dietitians.
There are greater influences available, such as television, greater varieties in the supermarket. So I would think that it is more difficult for parents to actually help their children develop healthier lifestyles because there are stronger influences.
New initiatives are already underway, though, to give more advice in schools to help make sure children receive the goodness they need at every meal.
So, Gillian, as we all know, it is very difficult, isn't it, to separate junk food from our children. What can we do about it, then?
Well, you're right. I think it's difficult to stop children eating junk food if that's what they've already got used to doing. But I think before we criticise children's diets, I think we as adults have to look at the kind of foods we're eating, because some of children's poor diet is purely because they're not being given very healthy foods at home. And if they look at mum and dad and see that they're not having much in the way of fruit and vegetables, of course they're going to think, well, why should I bother? But if somebody is worried about their child's diet being poor, then it may not take very dramatic changes to improve it. Simply trying to get them to have fresh fruit juice instead of canned soft drinks, perhaps have a piece of fruit instead of crisps or sweets in between meals, and just trying to get them to have at least one portion of vegetables with their main meal of the day. Those kind of simple changes might improve their diet a great deal.
As a result of this report, I'm sure people are going to get a little bit concerned. So how great, then, is the risk of disease in later life if they don't get these vitamins?
We genuinely don't know yet, because nobody has been able to carry out the long-term studies to see if children having good diets fare better in old age than those having poor diets. But I think, as we know, there's growing evidence that vitamins A, C and E can help to protect people against heart disease and some kinds of cancer. I think it's a realistic worry.
Gillian, thank you very much for joining us. See you again next week.
No chips or burgers for my children this week. Right, one of the world's most experienced charity workers, who's based here in the West, is giving his support to a campaign to send a plane load of aid from Bristol to Rwanda. Oxfam is trying to raise £100,000 in less than 3 weeks to help ease the suffering of thousands of refugees.
Oxfam say they've never seen suffering as severe as that in Rwanda, where 300 people a day are dying in the refugee camps. To improve contaminated water supplies, they're asking people in the West Country to contribute directly to a mercy flight. Charity worker Larry Hollingworth, who lives in Wiltshire, is backing the project to raise £100,000 in 3 weeks. The money will be used to fly desperately needed water purification and sanitation equipment from Filton Airport near Bristol.
I have never seen 1 million people in a small space. It's just as if Birmingham
upsticked everyone from their homes and moved out into a sort of lunarscape. It's a barren, miserable place, and there were 1 million people living under tents, living under pieces of plastic, living under twigs. There was no water. There was very little pure water. There's an enormous lake there, but there was no facility for getting that water to them, and therefore people were drinking diseased water, and they were dying.
Roger James is one of the people organising this airlift of equipment to clean up the water and save thousands of lives.
Well, it is shocking that, you know, in a world where we know that, you know, we have the means to solve problems, that people die from simple lack of water. But it's simply getting enough money in there. We've raised about £10 million so far. We're going to need a lot more money to complete this programme.
The Southwest People's Plane, as it's being called, is due to fly out next week on its mission of hope to ensure that water like this is safe to drink. Graham Purchase, HTV News, Bristol.
Well, if you'd like to help, there is a number that you can ring. It's this one. It's 0800 55 7735. I'll just repeat that for you. 0800 55 7735. Sue.
Right, some sport news next, and a bit of blow and sad news for Bristol boxer Ross Hale. His challenge for a world title fight is off. The light welterweight from Kingswood was due to fight American Zach Padilla in Hong Kong at the end of next month, but the world champion has collapsed in training and he may not fight again. On to cricket next, and Gloucestershire have been beaten in the semi-final of the Tetley Bitter Festival at Scarborough, Yorkshire winning by 3 wickets. And we stay with cricket for the moment, and Somerset have released 7 players, including wicketkeeper Neil Burns, who until the start of this season was a first-team regular. And there's also a question mark over Neil Mallinder's future. The county won't offer a new contract to the England seamer until they have received medical reports on his injured groin.
Well, next now, let's give you the latest world news, tonight's main national and international headlines from ITN. We join Bob Crampton.
For the first time, Irish Prime Minister Albert Reynolds has held face-to-face talks with Sinn Féin President Gerry Adams.
Peace is about reaching out to everybody, to bring everybody in, to sit around the table and to work out a new future.
Both men said they were committed to resolving political problems peacefully. The Post Office today denied it's planning to close more than 1,000 local post offices with a loss of 5,000 jobs. But the Postal Workers Union said it had a leaked document that proved the cuts were going ahead. A court heard today that Wolves footballer James Kelly viciously and persistently attacked a man and left him dying outside a hotel. Kelly and 2 other men are charged with murder. And police in Australia are investigating what's thought to be the country's first political assassination. John Newman, a campaigner against organised crime, was shot dead in front of his fiancée.
After that, a summary of the main stories making news tonight here in our West Country. Let's join Sue and Sherry.
A 2-year-old boy who went missing for nearly 6 hours while visiting a farm was found alive and well tonight. Navy helicopters, police, dogs, horses and scores of villagers had been searching for Oliver James before he was found in a ditch. A family who have made their home in the West Country after fleeing the troubles in Romania have now been told that they'll have to leave Britain within 28 days. They say they'd almost certainly be imprisoned. And Railtrack claims it's broken the train strike in the West Country. It says services between Bristol and Paddington will run normally during the next 24-hour stoppage on Thursday. And those are the main stories tonight.
After that, we turn to the weather, quite unsettled. Fair amount of rain around, certainly this way this afternoon. Is that the way things are going to continue?
I'm afraid so, and Bruce, not just rain tomorrow, but thundery showers too. Never mind. Let's take a look at the weather picture. This one is much nicer and comes from Matthew Jones, who is 6 years old and goes to St Mark's Primary School in Whirl. That's Weston-super-Mare, of course. Thank you very much, Matthew. Now for the tide times. For this evening, they're on the left, and tomorrow morning, they're on the right.
But this evening we're going to leave you with a wonderful moment when that little toddler at West Hatch was reunited with Mum and Dad, and so ended a 7-hour nightmare.
Absolutely marvellous. My heart has gone out to them all day, you know.
Happiest family in the West tonight.
I bet they are.
Always nice to end on a happy note. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Well, there'll be some heavy showers around tonight. They will die out eventually, leaving most parts of the region dry with clear spells. Now, notice it will feel on the cool side tonight, with temperatures falling to at least 8 Celsius, especially in country areas. As for the wind, it'll be light and from the southwesterly direction. Well, that's the way it's looking tonight. Now tomorrow. And showers in some western districts will soon spread to other parts of the region in the morning. Some will be heavy with a chance of thunder too. But having said that, sunny intervals are also forecast for the afternoon. Temperatures will rise to around 17 Celsius or 63 Fahrenheit with a moderate southwesterly wind. So for the summary then, showers dying out tonight but coming back tomorrow with a possible thundery shower too. Good evening.
This is straight from the daughter, inside track.
There's more at stake here than just your career.
Stories pay your wages.
Faith, Wednesday and Thursday.
Fixed wing boys can't go to nice hotels. You see, they've got to go to airports. So we, rotor wing boys, can go for Sunday lunch.
The extraordinary group of fanatics from all walks of life
We come here a lot, actually.
that are the members of one flying club living for the sensation of flying high. Short stories tomorrow, 8:30 on 4.
And the news is next over on Channel 4. Here on HTV, Chris Tate is getting out and about with Rachel in Emmerdale after the break.
Now you can get that airy scent of spring in a washing up liquid, because now there's new Spring Fresh Fairy. So you get that wonderful spring fresh feeling every time you wash up. New Spring Fresh Fairy. Spring bottled.
Are you a parent? Can you spare about 4 hours a week? Bristol Home Start needs volunteers near the centre of town to visit young families and provide friendly, reliable support. If you remember what it was like to be at home with small children, maybe you'd like to help. A preparation course begins in late September. Ring us on Bristol 428 399.
A new series of Dust Off. Tonight, 7:30 on HTV.
This is the rest of your Tuesday evening here on HTV with the Bill at 8 o'clock. Des O'Connor invites you to take your pick at 8:30 and the medics learn a few unexpected home truths at 9. Network First looks at an alleged case of date rape at 10:40 and with Prisoner at 11:40. This is your Tuesday evening on HTV.